Okay, so have I posted anything in the last 2 months? No, but I have been reading. Not as much as I normally would be. Thanks to Baldur's Gate, started a campaign with my husband, didn't realize it was going to take up hours and hours and hours of my life. So I haven't been posting videos and I haven't been really reading as much as I normally would, but I've been having a really good time. But I have been reading some really great things that I do want to talk about. Before I do that, yes, I know the audio on this video is going to be garbage. I don't want to wait until I get a new microphone. The thing is I had to replace my phone recently. Didn't realize that my microphone was not going to be compatible with my new phone until I went to do this, and I don't want to put it off any longer because then I'm just going to have even more to say, and the more I say, the more I have to edit, and that is my least favorite part of this process, and I'd like to avoid an hour-long video. So here we are. I'm going to talk about the books that I've read. I don't think there was anything that I really hated, but there's definitely been some things that I've like 5-star loved, some things that are utterly forgettable. So let's talk about all of those. We're also going to go through everything that I'm currently reading because I'm bouncing around to a lot of different things right now, and we'll talk about everything I have on hold at the library because I'm going to try and get through those in the next 2 weeks, but at the same time haven't really made a dent in my TBR cart. If anything, this has grown, which was not my intention. Okay, but I made notes. I'm gonna put this down. I made notes. This is a ginger ale with lemon. It's so fresh. Okay, I made notes, and by make notes, I mean I wrote down all of the titles of the books that I've read. Didn't actually make notes on my thoughts and feelings about them, so they're just gonna be unfiltered and honest. So what I've been reading, I think this is in order of when I read them because I just took it off of Storygraph. So I think the first thing that I haven't talked about yet is Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. I read that at the beginning of February, and I think at the time that I read that one, it was in like a Spotify exclusive audiobook. It's just an audiobook. I read it through Spotify because I always forget that I have Spotify audiobook credits that I could use until I don't use them, and then I feel silly about it. So I used it on that, but when I went to like look this up again, it was available through my library. So I don't think it's an exclusive anymore, but it was available on Spotify first. This was very quintessential Ali Hazelwood, not quite as like steamy as her most recent books have been, but the dynamic between the two characters is very on brand for Ali Hazelwood. This time they are two video game programmers at rival companies, and their companies have to join together to make a video game based on a book series that is like very near and dear to the main characters. It was really sweet. It was very quick. I think it was like the perfect length for an Ali Hazelwood book. I think it was only like maybe 4.5 hours of a listen, and it was just bite-sized enough where it didn't feel like any parts were like really dragging, but the relationship still felt like it was able to like get fully fleshed out and fully realized. And I don't think there was any moments that really bothered me too much, so I'm gonna go ahead and say this was a good one. And if you like Ali Hazelwood, I think you should give this one a shot because like it's an enjoyable time. And then I read A Story of a New Name by Elena Ferrante. This is the second book in the Neapolitan Quartet series, and so it goes My Brilliant Friend, A Story of a New Name. I've waited on picking up the third book until I can fully put my thoughts together on the second book because I really liked the breakdown that I did on this channel of My Brilliant Friend, that video here. So I want to do something similar for the second book. There's definitely themes that I like honed in on as being like important in the first book that I want to expand upon how they came through in the second book, because they definitely did. Some of the predictions that I made in that video on what I thought was going to happen in book 2, I want to come back and revisit those predictions and how accurate they were. So more to come on that series, on that video. I'm hoping it doesn't take too long for me to get that out, but you know, I'm juggling a lot of things right now. I have like a whole city to save in Baldur's Gate. Okay, so yeah, more to come on my thoughts on that one. I also read one of my favorite romances that I've read definitely this year, but maybe in like a while, was How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kuang. Now here's the thing, I started this book and I read the summary and I was just like, There are some times in like romance books where I'm just like, you know what, there are more people in the world than the one person you shouldn't fall in love with, and I don't think you should even try to fall in love with this person. Like, why are you giving them an opportunity? This book, I started out thinking that, like, why on earth would you even entertain being in the same room as the man who was driving the vehicle that your sister... I'm gonna say that a different way because it's gonna be triggering. Okay, how do I wanna say this without... Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and just put like a content warning for this book up right now. The love interest in this story is the man who was driving the vehicle that her sister jumped in front of, okay? So very complicated situation because he was traumatized. You know, he did not want to be involved in that in any way, shape, or form, didn't know what was happening until it had happened, and then he was traumatized. Her sister, also obviously traumatized, and her family blames this man for what happened. It's one of those things, I don't know. At the beginning, I was like, why are they even entertaining being in the same room together? Like, it's just gonna be painful for everyone. Just leave it be. Like, you could find literally anybody else. By the end of the story, I was like, no, we're rooting for them fully. It was so sweet, so tender. I was obsessed with it. I didn't want to put it down. I would definitely recommend that one, but please, please, please check all of the content warnings, especially if you're someone who's super sensitive to suicide or the death of a sibling. So then after I read the very emotional How to End a Love Story, I then read The Death of Vivek Oji by Akwaeke Emezi. Devastating. This was devastating. If I had to sum this up really quickly, it would be how the people who love us the most sometimes hold us so tightly that we break. And it's the most devastating thing that I've ever read in my entire life, and I think I could go on and on and on about it, but I think you just need to read it. I think you need to read it. Akwaeke Emezi is an incredible author. I will never miss an opportunity to read anything that they decide to write, which is incredible because I have an audiobook of theirs lined up to read at this very moment. I'm very excited about it. Then for book club in February, I read Now Is Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. This one we picked because we had read Kevin Wilson's other book that I'm totally blanking on right now. I can see it. The other story had like magical realism elements to it where this woman is nannying for these children who anytime they have like big feelings, they would just spontaneously combust. So we decided to pick up this other book, Now Is Not the Time to Panic, and it was so interesting. It was very interesting, more lit fic style, no magical realism, but it's essentially about this like poster-induced panic that happened in our main character's childhood and how that like affects her throughout her life. And honestly, the acknowledgements for this one at the end of the story, like the author's note, was really incredible because it puts everything really into perspective. The author is talking about, Kevin Wilson talked about, he talked about his own mental health diagnoses, and it really comes through in the story in a really interesting way. Yeah, I would definitely recommend that one. So after like 3 fairly heavy books in a row, I then decided to pick up Puck and Prejudice, which is the most unserious, maybe not the most unserious, but a very unserious retelling of Pride and Prejudice. And instead of like having a traditional Mr. Darcy, we have a hockey player who accidentally gets transported back in time and becomes Mr. Darcy, and like the Elizabeth Bennet in this story is like just this girl who's trying to become a widower. Like she wants to marry and be a widower so that she has the freedom of a woman who can just live her life the way that she wants. And so she pairs up with this time traveling hockey player so that like they can find a way to send him back to his time, and she can be like, oh well, that was my husband and now he's gone and now I'm a widower. That's their plan. It's very funny. There was one part that I do remember bothering me because towards the end of the story, after having a fairly enjoyable time with the entire thing, the hockey player back in his time, he's like being interviewed. During this interview, one of the questions was like, who knew you hockey players read so much? And yet his response is, well, they're audiobooks. And I didn't like the insinuation that was making. So I also then started The Trial of the Sun Queen, and that whole series, I kind of read, like that was like the one thing that I read all of March, was like that entire series. I finished the last book recently. I have not read a romantasy in such a long time. Like I think I really like honed in on romantasy during like 2020. And I have not revisited it since. And this is the first like dip back into romantasy that I've been willing to try, and it was fairly enjoyable. I think this book series probably would have paced better as a trilogy instead of a quartet. And that's really my only gripe with it. Like I liked the characters. I thought the dynamics between everyone was really interesting. I liked all of the side characters, but there's just a lot of like back and forth that I think if we had only had 3 books and cut some of the meandering out and some of the repetitiveness out, it would have been like solid. But even with the 4th book, it was enjoyable, and it is a complete series, so like I didn't have to wait a year for another book when I felt like there shouldn't even be another book. Like it was a good time. I would recommend it. But that book series actually inspired me to take a chance on another romantasy book series. So I have officially picked up A Broken Blade. I've heard incredible things about this series, and I've started it. I'm like a couple chapters in. Actually, I think I'm like 130 pages in. I'm really enjoying it so far. I think this is the perfect time for me to pick up this book because I am interested in romantasy again. I didn't want to pick this up beforehand and then not like it because I wasn't in the mood for it, but now I'm in the mood for it and I can't wait. So I'm very excited to be there. And I thank the Trial of the Sun Queen series for allowing me the opportunity to get back in a romantasy mood. So I read The Trial of the Sun Queen and then the second book, Rule of the Aurora King. After that, the widget for A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry came through. This was interesting. And it's interesting because it is like, it's very much an Emily Henry written story, like the dynamic and between like the romance characters within the story is very Emily Henry-esque. You know, they're both like nonfiction book writers, they're journalists. And the interesting thing I think about A Great Bold Beautiful Life is that the romance is very much a subplot in the story. Like I think Emily Henry for a while has been floating around lit fic / romance, but almost every other story, like I can't think of another Emily Henry story where you could remove the romance and the story would still make sense. This, A Great Big Beautiful Life, like you could remove the romance and still have an incredibly solid story. I actually don't think the romance was necessary, but I personally enjoyed it. So in that, like it wasn't my favorite Emily Henry, like it's not gonna beat Beach Read for me. But I do think this stands alone in and of itself. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, this one, it had me very emotional, especially towards the end of the story, crying over, you know, mommy issues and The Last Great American Dynasty. Just wanted to play that and cry, and I did. So that was that. Then for book club in March, we read Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. This one, I feel as though I would have done better with this book if I read it physically instead of listening to the audiobook, because I'm not gonna lie, I was lost. I was so lost. And you know, I was very sick in March, so like I was not like all mentally there. So maybe like the combination of being really sick and listening to the audiobook, I just like was not absorbing the material I think that in a way that I should have or could have normally. I did end up giving this one like 3 stars. I thought towards the end it was like really interesting, but I feel like there was a lot that I just missed in the audiobook experience of this one. So that was a little disappointing. The book club, most people that read this book in book club, did not end up finishing it. I think I was the only one who finished this book. And like I said, I thought it was worth it, but I think I would have done better with like a physical book. I was just really surprised because this one is like, every time I see someone talking about this book, they talk about how it's the most incredible thing that they've ever read in their entire life. And that just makes me feel dumb, but that's okay. That's a me thing. So yeah, then I finished the Trial of the Sun Queen series with Fate of the Sun Queen and Tale of the Heart Queen. Again, I thought that was an enjoyable time, and it inspired me to pick up A Broken Blade, which I'm having an even better time with. So more to come on that. The other books that I'm reading currently, Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. I'm so excited about this one. This is the audiobook that I'm listening to right now, and it is incredible. And I need to clarify, this is a book about a woman who's obsessed with planes. Think of like, if you've heard of that one woman who like said she was married to the Eiffel Tower. So her, except for planes, these are not sentient planes. This is not a romance. Like, she is just obsessed with planes, and she thinks her destiny is to become the like soulmates with an airplane. And in order to do that, she has to die on a plane. I'm like 35% into this story. It is really, really funny, and endearing, and also crazy. Very absurd. So I'm having a really good time with this one. I will let you know my thoughts once I have made it fully through the story, and maybe I'll do like a full review on it because it's just very interesting. One of the other books that I'm reading right now, Forest of Noise by Moseb Abutoa. Recently, in the last like year and a half, I read his other poetry collection, which is Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear. He is a Palestinian author, and these are poems about his experience as a Palestinian man and the Palestinian experience as a whole. I highly, highly recommend it. And I have a couple links that you can go to support people who are currently dealing with this situation in Gaza right now. So there's that. But I'm only like a couple poems in on that one. I'm going to be taking my time with it because there's a lot to digest there. Current Libby holds. I currently have on hold Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. My book club really likes like mystery thrillers, so we are getting back to our roots with Famous Last Words. This one does sound really interesting, but I haven't started it yet. It's on hold. We also put a hold out for The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. It was supposed to be for our book club, not this month, but next month, but then my hold came in early. So now I have both of those. I'm probably gonna wait and like renew my hold for The Guncle. And then I also just came through A Council of Dolls by Mona Susan Power. I've heard really incredible things about this one. It's more historical fiction, about the lineage of a family and how their dolls have like influenced their lives. It's an Indigenous author. It's an Indigenous story. I'm excited to get into this one. I don't know a ton about it, but the synopsis had me intrigued, so I went for it. And then the last book that I have on hold is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kilmer. I have been attempting to read this book for a really long time. It's just longer, and like I keep trying to do it in audiobook form, so it's just like I keep lapsing on my hold for it. So if I lapse on my hold for it again, I'm just gonna buy it because I need to read it. But I don't think I'm giving myself enough time to read it in the like short span of a library hold. So we're gonna try one more time, and then if not, it's gonna get added to a haul here soon. And then I did mention there's a couple audiobooks through the Penguin Random House Audio Influencer Program that I'm really excited about. One of them being Somadina by Akweke Emezi. This is another YA book from Emezi that I'm really excited to get into. Again, never gonna miss an opportunity to read more from them. That was a lot. I feel like I just talked for a really long time. Okay, So that's everything that I've read, have been reading, will be reading in the next few weeks. That being said, so many of the books that I read, I borrow through the library. My reading pace is not something that I would be able to afford otherwise. And I think a lot of people are along the same lines. So I just really quickly would like to shout out the fact that I love, love, love my local library, and I want them to stay funded. Where I live in Ohio specifically, libraries are really under fire right now. They are trying to cut them. Most libraries would end up being cut by up to 50% if the current legislation that they're trying to pass through passes through. We don't want that to happen. So if you're in Ohio, reach out to your representatives and yell at them. I know I have been. Let them know how essential our library services are, because there are so many super essential library services, not even considering like the books and the media that are so important to be housed there and available to everyone, but also Wi-Fi services and essential services that they provide to people who are looking for employment, which I think is going to be something that's super, super necessary, unfortunately, in the next few years. So please do what you can. Reach out to your local libraries and see if there's anything that they need support with. And one of the best ways you can support your local library is by getting a library card and using the heck out of it. So I know I will be doing that. I will also be contacting my representatives. Do what you can. We love, love, love the library. Okay? Okay. That is all that I have for today. Thank you so, so much for being here with me today. I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day. Mwah.